Welcome to today's Pedagogical Corner. Socrates and his youth movement crushing Sophism. Report on the presentation by Michael Liebig, August 30th, 2003. Under this title, Michael Liebig made the last presentation of the August 16th to 17th Schiller Institute Summer Academy, drawing very interesting parallels between what Socrates did in the last half of the 5th century BC to combat the evil of what was known as Sophism, and what LaRouche is doing today to fight the synarchists and related oligarchical species. In both cases, the crucial flank and weapon is the building of a youth movement. Michael began by mentioning the recent papers of Lynn on the complex domain, and the paper just published on August 16th on Truman, Cheney, and the nuclear war danger, as reference points for what he was going to elaborate. He said that the crucial principle that emerges from looking at Greece and then the situation today is isochronicity as the central feature of creative mentation. The idea is to look at history not as mechanical parallels, but to achieve an isochronic understanding of the past and present. Secondly, what is shown in this study is the power of ideas in building nations and states against the destructive power of entropic ideologies that destroy nations and states. Liebig then discussed the situation in the Greece in Socrates' time and before, referencing the fact that we were first caused to look at this issue by an extraordinary person, the 90-year-old Max Konstam, who 18 months ago reacted to LaRouche's observations on the Roman Empire by advising us to look at the problem of Athens, particularly through Thucydides' account of the Athenian Empire's ultimatum to the Melians. Following through on this advice, we come to an enormous paradox, namely that no land that we know of has ever in history achieved as much as Athens. Over 200 years from the time of Solon, but this was to an enormous extent thrown away and undermined in 5th century BC, with culminating in the 399 judicial murder of Socrates. Here the battle was lost, but the bigger war was won when in 387 the Platonic Academy was opened by Socrates' master pupil Plato. And from this academy, the great ideas of Socrates and his predecessors, Thales, Anaximander, etc., were preserved and developed for humanity. Liebig recommended valuable source materials on this history, including Thucydides, Shakespeare, and the historians Theo Mommsen, certainly available in English, and Eduard Meyer, but especially the 3-volume History of Greece, written in 1857 to 68 by Ernest Curtius, Curtius. The importance of Curtius is that he shows that Athens' destruction in the course of the 5th century BC was not because of such familiar explanations as imperial overreach or destruction of resources or external enemies, but rather that Athens destroyed itself through the negative transformation of its moral and political culture. Particularly destructive was the rise of Sophism, which intruded into all aspects of Athenian life and targeted and subverted the best there was among young and educated Athenians and among political elites. Sophist education was poison. It was a pseudo-philosophy which increasingly gained hegemony between 480 and 404 BC, the latter the date of Athens' defeat in the Peloponnesian War. No original Sophist text has survived, but much can be learned from the accounts of Zenon on the life of Socrates, and more importantly, from Plato, from the dialogues, Sophist, Protagoras, and Gorgias. The central sophist thesis that emerges is, first, that there is no knowable truth. Hypothesis is rejected, and there is no lawfulness, no higher principle. This is all a rejection of the ideas of Heraclitus and Pythagoras, whose concepts of higher principles are the beginning of the study of the complex domain. What flows from this, second, is that if there is no higher principle in nature, there is no principle of society, no natural law governing society. Third, according to sophists, there are only social conventions, tricks. In modern times, the sophists are the reductionists, the empiricists, the relativists, Nietzsche, Hobbes, Locke, Leo Strauss. In the time of 5th century BC Athens, the sophists' conscious design was to suppress Thales and Solon and to target youth, especially those from influential families, many of whom were made to think that sophism was the in thing. Sophism, as practiced by such as Gorgias and Protagoras, who were the richest of the breed, was an industry in which money was very important. At this point, Liebig gave a dramatic demonstration by reading from the Gorgias dialogue of Plato, in which Socrates combats the sophist Gorgias, his eager beaver disciple Polus, and the Nietzschean sophist Callicles. Rather than reproduce this part of the presentation here, we strongly advise that the dialogue be read. It makes the whole fight very lively. Liebig concluded that with the trial and judicial murder of Socrates, the battle was lost. But in world historical terms, it was won. Socrates built a youth movement, which later emerged in the form of the Platonic Academy. They were more than a match for the sophists, as Plato motivated a density of philosophical thought that preserved and developed further the great ideas of Solon, Thales, etc. Sophism as an ideology was crushed and discredited.